Good morning and welcome to Frontiers of Knowledge segment of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. Thanks to the farmers' protests in India, which has become a global phenomenon and globally talked about subject, we find farmers are in news, albeit for the wrong reasons. Nevertheless, nobody can deny the role of agriculture in our life. As a matter of fact, the modes of agriculture are changing. From forms, we are going to move to the vertical forms, the town forms, forms of the houses, and so on and so forth. However, there are a number of innovative developments that are taking place in this sector. And some of the knowledge that is coming now is really startling. First, I'll start with something which has been there for a long time, so it's just addition to the knowledge. Why beer is made from barley alone? Although we have seen rice beer and I enjoyed it in Thailand and in Korea. But why brewers choose barley? And people have been cultivating cereals for a long time. But if we go to archaeology, we find that barley has been used for making beer for more than 100,000 years. Why? Isn't that amazing that for more than 100,000 years, human beings have been grinding, pounding plant material and chewing up a grain was the earliest thing that was done that added salivary enzymes that convert starch into sugar ready for fermentation. And that was the base of the beer 100,000 years back. Of course, as I said, rice, millet, corn, sorghum, they have been used to make beer. But barley has a fairly simple anatomy. For the brewers, the spike at the top is an important part of barley plant because that is where the seeds sit. Now, if we look at the structure of the spike, you would find that the spikes can vary in number of roots, but they are always in multiple of two, two, four, six. And the ideal spikes for brewing is two-row barley. Now, the endosperm of a seed develops a large reserve of starch. This is possibly the only grain that does it. And that starch is destined to power later developments when the seed starts to germinate. In its original form, the starch is not directly available to the seed for growth, but the layer contains a sort of reserve enzymes that are released when the germination takes place. And these enzymes promptly begin to break down the endosperm boundary, exposing the starch granules inside to allurian enzymes that break them down. And voila, you have got the beer, the ultimate thirst quenching drink. Personally, I have two favorite drinks, beer and lassi, the pure Punjabi thing and the pure American. And as I said, barley is the only grain that has got extraordinary ability to break open the endosperm and then convert that starch into sugar. And that's why most of the beer that you get in the world, most, as I said, because other beers are available, is barley beer. Now, let's come to the second thing. Agriculture without composting is not possible. But could you believe that you can be a part of the composting? For the first time in the history of the world, human composting center has been opened not long back, just a few days back. As a matter of fact, the first human composting was done about 1.5 months back. That's it. And it's a full service human composting funeral home in USA. And it's in Seattle, Washington. They convert a human body into a square meter of soil in just 30 days. And the benefits, it saves a lot of carbon dioxide compared to the traditional cremation or the traditional burial, both of which are not environmentally friendly. Burial still is. Cremation is the worst part of disposal of the human body. Burial is okay because slowly the body will decompose, provided it's not in a coffin. If you place it in a metal coffin, it might not decompose the way it should. So the ideal ways are either the water burial. You put the body in the water, and that's being done in Australia, or this new human composting system where you convert the body into a square meter of soil. And the process is called the recomposition or natural organic reduction. It is the traditional principle of natural green burial. And how does it take place? Bodies are covered with wood chips, alfalfa, straw grass, and then aeration process takes place. So it's a perfect environment for naturally occurring by microbes and beneficial bacteria. And the body is turned into a compost, so you can use it in your garden. Your ancestors, you need not bury them, you need not burn them. They can be with you in the shape of plants that are fertilized with this compost. So, as I said, this is not a new concept. We have had earlier this system. It was in September 2019 that egg-shaped pod was made in which the body was placed in Italy, and that was connected to a tree. And that egg-shaped coffin helped also the body through natural composition, but that took a long time. This takes a much shorter time. And the water burial, as I said, is our second way, where the water is enriched with the chemicals. And now, why talk of the decomposition, when we have got nice fruits and Israel has developed first virus resistant tomatoes. The benefit is, of course, it will have no virus, but a bigger benefit is going to be it would save 50% of tomato crop that goes waste worldwide every year. 50% of the crop which goes waste shall be saved. For 5 years, the Israeli Syngenta Vegetable Seed Company worked hard to create this virus resistant tomatoes. 5 years, and then they had a breakthrough. And the first variant resistant IR tomato has been grown, and as they say, this is going to save 50% of the crop globally. It has been used for 2 seasons in Israel, and the saving has been more than 60%. As a matter of fact, Israel is the first country in the world to begin the new variety in greenhouses, and it's being done in desert, Negev desert. They have built the greenhouses there in the northwest Negev desert, and they are growing tomatoes there. And this variety, since it's resistant to virus, will rehabilitate tomato growing because earlier that virus simply wiped out the crop. In until 2014, annual tomato crop yield in Israel was average of 200,000 tons. Then it reduced to 100,000 tons because of the virus. And now they say that is going to increase. And the economic damage of 120 million dollars would be there. $120 million for Israel alone. So worldwide, you can well imagine. And there's a sharp demand and an unprecedented quantity would now be available from Israel for the whole of Middle East. Only one country would be able to supply the demand of the whole Middle East. And then, can you believe that the spinach that you eat, plain spinach, baby spinach, or plain spinach, has been able to transmit emails. Scientists have taught spinach. The old people may not be able to do it, but and not only these spinach can send the emails, this can also warn us about the climate change. Well, it looks like as if I'm watching a science fiction movie or reading a science fiction novel because I can't believe and I could not believe that spinach plants could be re-engineered to send emails. But thanks to nanotechnology, engineers at MIT have transformed spinach into sensors that are capable of detecting explosive materials and then wirelessly relay the information back to the scientists. The spinach roots detect the presence of microaromatics in the groundwater, a compound that is also found in explosives of the landmines. So the carbon nanotubes within the plant leaves, which are already there, they have planted them, emit a signal. This signal is read by the infrared cameras. An alert email is sent to the concerned authorities. As a matter of fact, this experiment is a part of a larger research which involves engineering electronic components and systems in the plant, and we call it plant nanobionics. Now, this is a new subject for the youngsters to study. The people who are coming to the schools can keep their eyes open. And plant nanobionics is basically a science which will give plants new abilities to sense, to transmit, to signal. And according to Professor Michael Stano, plants are very good analytical chemists. Secondly, if you remember, I talked to you that how one plant can warn the other plants that there is a danger from human beings or from animals. So, that root network of the soil can constantly sample groundwater and it has a way of self-powering the transport of that water up to into the leaves. So this system enables them, and this plant nanobionic subject is going to be extremely, extremely interesting and useful because it will help warn the scientists about pollution and other environmental conditions. Plants are able to sense the surroundings and they are ideally situated to monitor the environmental changes. So the plant bionics research would basically use nanoparticles to make the plants into sensors for pollutants. And that is going to be a benefit and a blessing. Let's not forget that the plants are very environmentally responsive. They know more about that there's going to be drought or there's going to be rain or there's going to be landslide much before we do. They detect small changes in the property of soil and water potential. So if the scientists can tap into the chemical signaling pathways, there is a wealth of information that the plants can give. And when spinach is not busy sending emails, it also has a key to efficiently power fuel cells. Scientists from the Mackay University have found a way when signal is converted into carbon nanosheaths and converts as a catalyst to help metal, air, batteries, and fuel cells more efficient. So spinach is not only good for eating, but it's good for A, environment control, B, for human control, C, for the fuel cells. There's a comment by Krishna Kumar Vash. By these three formulas, government is trying to step away from buying all wheat. Excuse me, this is not connected with the subject, and as such, I have responded to this question in my other comments which dealt with the former's issues. Here we are talking about the new technologies and the new innovations. So spinach has been, you might ask me a question coming back to that. Why spinach? Why not other plant? Because spinach has abundance of iron, good for the people who are suffering from low blood count and low hemoglobin. It has a lot of nitrogen, and these two are important elements in compounds and act as catalysts. And now we talked of the human body composting to fertilize. We have another thing, which is the old batteries that you use throw, and they are pollutants. So an Australian company has started using old batteries for fertilizers. They say that 97% of the alkaline batteries cannot be recycled. These are the batteries used in the television remotes, children toys, torches, our mouse, and so on, because they cannot be recycled. So here is a different story. In Europe, legislation requires a shop that sells batteries to take them back. But Australia has done much better. They recycle it. They use extreme heat to melt all the metal, and then when everything is left, it is useful as a fertilizer. The part of lithium Australia, they say that they'll recycle all sorts of refrigerants and turn them into a fertilizer. Wow. As I said always, human ingenuity has no limits. And these are the new developments. And but here's another comment. How are they able to convert the batteries into plant food? According to the scientists, what they say is that the batteries are first crushed, then the process of filtration, purification, removal of toxic elements like mercury and nickel, because they can be poisonous. And then they are disposed of, and the elements left after mercury and nickel are purified and used as fertilizers. And this fertilizer is especially used for crops like tomatoes, cotton, and avocados. So these are the new developments, new innovations that are going to make agriculture substantially more useful, more comprehensive, comprehensive as far as the need is concerned, comprehensively useful, and of course, progressive, to save land, to increase the productivity per unit. And we meet with the new innovations in diverse fields next week, same time. Thank you.